Good afternoon, educators. Good afternoon, teachers. Good afternoon, educators. Welcome, welcome, far and wide as you join us. Welcome to our workshop this afternoon for engaging reluctant readers. My name is Homoto and I will be hosting this afternoon session, and it will be presented by Professor Janet Condi. Welcome, educators. As I see attendees streaming in by the numbers, by the hundreds. We've got an exciting workshop today in the spirit of National Book Month. We would like to welcome you, and we hope that you will definitely find this presentation absolutely insightful. You will enjoy it, and most importantly, it will be of great use to you this afternoon. As I said, my name is Homoto. I represent Macmillan Education, and this lovely workshop that we are making available to you educators, we hope that you will definitely take away everything that is important about engaging reluctant readers today. Now, Macmillan Education has dedicated an entire month to the joy of reading and the power of books to open minds, spark creativity, and foster lifelong learning. Whether you're a learner, a teacher, a parent, or a book lover, we invite you to join us in celebrating this month of literary fun. There's something for everyone, free reading workshops like today for teachers, tips for parents on raising a reader, interest articles about the importance of reading for kids and adults, big prizes to win with competition, and much, much more. Macmillan has also dedicated to donate over 12,000 foundation phase library books and readers to 24 underprivileged schools in South Africa. How fantastic is that? All of this is happening this month, National Book Month, and we are saying we are giving back to reading. We want to make sure that we plow back and each and every kid has access to books. Now, today's workshop, as I mentioned, is engaging reluctant readers. I just want to quickly also mention that we're also running a competition on our Reading Corner. Some educators will be familiar with the online Macmillan Reading Corner. It is a great platform that we have available on YouTube. You can access it by just searching Macmillan Education SA on our YouTube channel, and the playlist is called The Reading Corner. You'll find amazing stories there with presenters who are reading stories, mother tongue stories, and fantastic wide range of readers available from our end. We're sharing the love of reading, and we're encouraging parents, learners, educators all around to just make use of that tool. It's free to use. Please just hop onto YouTube and browse those wonderful stories, and you will see on our social media the competition that is running that is related to the Macmillan Reading Corner. Now, I want to also make you aware that today's session will be available as a recording. If you do perhaps at some point of the workshop have technical issues, please don't worry. We've got you covered. We will email you a link to the recording as well. If perhaps you have educators that have missed the session, you're welcome to share with them as well the link to the recording that will be made available to you. Another thing, if you're attending this session, we also want to make you aware that as an attendee of the session, you will be getting a certificate of attendance, which you can then claim towards your PD points. Isn't that great? I think that's wonderful. And then as well, the presentation that Prof will be presenting you today, we've also then made that available. If you see on your toolbar, there's a area that says handouts. You're welcome to just click that link, and that's where you can access the PowerPoint presentation. But we do encourage you to stay tuned and please listen attentively to the PowerPoint presentation, and then as well the questions. So all questions will be attended to right at the end of the workshop. So you're welcome to just drop all your questions in the question box. Click the drop down arrow there, and then you can just leave your questions. We will try as much as possible. I know there'll be an overwhelming number, so if we don't get through all the questions, we will then attend to them at another time. Now, I'd like to introduce Professor Janet Condi, who was the director of the Literary Development Research Unit at CPUT. She has been teaching for the past 42 years, 19 years in mainstream schools and the special schools. For the past 25 years, she has been developing teachers at the education faculty of CPUT. She graduated with a doctoral degree in 2006 and in 2019 was inaugurated as a full professor. Her teaching and research focus has been primarily on literacy, including inclusive education, critical thinking, digital storytelling, and philosophy for children. She's currently co-leading 2 research projects, Reading for Meaning and Sisonke Supervision Mentoring Project. She has published over 60 articles supervised to completion, 4 doctoral students and 13 master's students. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you Professor Janet Kondi. Professor, how are you?
Lovely to hear from you, Khomotso. Thank you so much for inviting me to do this presentation.
Awesome. You're welcome.
It's a real privilege. I know that this is Literacy Month, and I know that many organizations are celebrating literacy. We've just had the 19th Latasa conference in Cape Town, where we had over 350 people presenting. The most amazing literacy projects are being done out there in NGOs, education, in schools, with parents. It's just lovely. So I thank you so much for focusing on literacy during this month and inviting me to be part of your panel for this presentation. Okay, so let me go on. I think one of the reasons why I jumped at this opportunity to do this presentation is that in the bio, Khomotso read that I worked at special schools, and I did. There's a special school in Cape Town for learning disabled and cerebral palsy children, and I worked there for 9 years. And the last 5 years, I worked with the language enrichment group, and they were the children who had failed mainstream. They'd come to Vista Nova in grade 1, 2, and 3 and had failed Vista Nova, our special school. And then they came to me. So they were the doubly learning disabled children. They were the real reluctant readers. They hated education. Their self-esteem was lower than their ankles. And so I decided to change the way of teaching completely. And I decided to put fun into my teaching, and to work with them in an exciting environment. And I'm going to talk about that. As you can see here, I'm going to talk about what do reluctant readers do and what do good readers do. I mean, we have to know what we want our reluctant readers to do eventually. I'm going to talk about 5 practical tips of working with reluctant readers. And then I'm going to also spend a lot of time talking about fun activities to support your reluctant readers. So welcome. I hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoyed preparing this presentation. All right. So what do reluctant readers do? Well, they may actively resist reading. We've seen these pictures of these children in our classrooms. They don't want to. They don't want to get involved in the classroom. They do not show an interest in reading. They close the books, their eyes are elsewhere, but not in the books. They mask their behavior and dislike for reading by misbehaving. I think we all know those children, those behavioral problems. Those children are acting out because they are wanting attention, really. They connect reading to school-related tasks, and in my children that I taught, they had failed school and they had failed all school-related tasks. They did not want to be there. And yes, they equate reading with failure. We've experienced those children, and we fail those children ourselves. They need to be coaxed into picking up a book. They don't want to go. They won't go to the reading corner and get a book. They won't go home and read by themselves independently, and they become easily frustrated during the reading, and often that frustration manifests in misbehavior. So that is, and I'm sure you can identify your reluctant readers here. But what do good readers do? I mean, we've seen these pictures where children get so totally involved in books, and something they forget what's happening in the classroom. Look at the focus. Look at they're not worried about other people. So what do good readers do? Well, good readers is they take a book and they preview it, they page through it, and they see what is there and what are they in for. How are they going to like this? Is it going to be something that they like? From the early children, are there going to be pictures? Are there going to be long sentences? Are there going to be difficult words? With the older children, will there be pictures as well? Or is it going to be just all narrative? They want to have a look at that. They visualize the story. You know, they go on a visual trip, a holiday with the books that they read. They ask questions. They question, is that the right decision to make? Should you have done that? Or, you know, as they go along in their stories, they ask questions. They predict. They look at the picture. They look at the front page. They read the splurb in the front. They predict, what is the story about? Or the splurb at the back of the book. Is that something that's going to interest me? Do I want to read that? All the way through books, children infer meaning that they have to make assumptions, but they are assumptions that are made from educated guesses, and they'll read on and they'll see, has their inference been correct? They will make connections. They will make connections to their hometown, to their community. How does a story relate to my environment? If there are no connections, they're not going to read it, ladies and gentlemen. You know, I'm not going to read about fish that you find in Japan, for example, because there's no connection to me, to my life. And then they respond. They share books with each other. They talk about the characters. They talk, would I have reacted like that? Would I have reacted like this? And then they also summarize it. They tell their friends about the book and they summarize the book. So these are skills that good readers do. And this is what we want to encourage our reluctant readers to do as well. But now I want to share with you 5 practical tips for teachers to work with your reluctant readers. So the first point is focus on the student's strength. Now this reminds me very, very closely about Sia Khaleesi. I read his book. Sia came from the township school in Port Elizabeth and he went to Grey College, and he had missed out quite a lot of education. So he was given a remedial teacher. What did that remedial teacher focus his reading on? Rugby. She found out what was his strength. She went to the library. She got lots of books on rugby and she focused, and all the work that she did was with him on rugby. So immediately you're focusing on their strength, something that they like, something that they want to get involved in, something that they can work towards their strengths. And it reduces their feelings of helplessness. If they like it and it's their strength, then they feel more engaged in it. The next point is teach the whole child. So here I'm saying that the whole child is the scholastic child, the academic child, the emotional child. So why are they playing out? You know, you've got to find out, why are they playing out? Can you give them some activities where they feel better so they don't have to play out? Sometimes we create reluctant readers because we set the bar too high, perhaps, and we make demands on the child and they can't do it. What we have to do is go back I mean, see it as a building a house. You know, you've got your foundation, you've got your next row of bricks and your next row of bricks. And if it's not working at that third level of bricks, then we come back to the first layer of bricks and we reteach and we relook at things that they can do. We ask them if they can produce something, and it will, if they can produce something, it will give them a sense of intelligence and power if they feel like they can complete a task. All right, then we go back to teach the skills and competencies. Now, I know that many teachers do not know how to teach reading. So what we have to do is we have to go back and teach the basic reading skills, the um, the decoding, the phonics, the phonemic awareness. How do we teach that? Then we've got to teach them how to recognize words, how to read those long, complex words. We've got to give them those skills. And by doing that, we can build up their competencies. I remember teaching my children every day of how to find smaller words in bigger words. And by October or August, sorry, one year, Matthew came to me and said, Miss Condi, does this word say Amanda? And I said, but Matthew, that's fantastic. He could not read up until August. He could not read a single word, but he could then read the word Amanda. And I said, Matthew, how are you doing it? And he said, well, you taught me that I must look for smaller words in bigger words. So I see there man, and then I look at what does it say at the beginning, and then man, and then da, and I put it together. So he had started teaching himself how to be an independent reader. I had given him the skills. He had accepted those skills, and he was now on his way to becoming a fantastic reader. He had felt a sense of accomplishment. And in special schools, I know that we get excited by small things, teachers. In mainstream schools, you get excited if children do really well on tests. I used to get excited if they can just read one word. So we get excited about small things, and then we set our high later on, and we set our expectations a little bit further. But also, we must make our learning fun. It's got to be relative. It's got to be important to them. It's got to link to their community. All right. Then how have high expectations. I love this picture. You can do it. You know, children can read. I have taught, as Khomotso read out, for 42 years. I've run my own remedial business. And I think there's only been 2 children who I have not been able to teach to read. Everybody, they were just hugely dyslexic, those 2 children, but everybody can read, and we can get them to read in a fun way. We can make it really challenging, where they connect socially and emotionally to whatever we're doing. So have a high expectations of yourself as a teacher. We've got to plan to be the perfect teacher. We've got to be an unflappable teacher in the face of chaos and violence, which is what happens in our schools. But we've got to be the unflappable teacher. We've got to develop self-knowledge about ourselves, that we are self-critical without being self-deprecating. And we have to laugh at ourselves and laugh at our faults. I always used to tell the children how sometimes, you know, I would read a word and I didn't know myself what it was. And then I would share with them, but this is what I did. So we talk to our children about how we also have reading problems, what we do to get over those reading problems. And ladies and gentlemen, this is what I say is explicit learning. So much of our teaching is implicit. The teacher stands up in the classroom and says, fill out this activity, open your books at this stage, do this activity, and complete it. We don't want to be those kind of teachers. We want to be the kinds of teachers who show passion and love, and extend what's in that book and teach them more skills. The higher order thinking skills are critical thinking skills. We've got so much we've got to verbalize. We can't sit down at our desks and mark or do admin teaching or admin work. We've got to be out there physically teaching, talking all the time, and setting high expectations and believing that success or failure is directly connected to your efforts. And we've got to help our children and to encourage our children to do the best that we can. And then the last tip is about love our work. So we have to love our work and we've got to feel satisfied with it. And I know that the schooling system is very, very cruel at the moment. It's intensely difficult. It's very demanding and very discouraging. But ladies and gentlemen, you know, teachers are different kind of people. We are in the field of service. And that is why you went and did 4 years of training to be in the field of service. So let's use that privilege and let's work with our children and let's go down to that bottom, go down a few layers of bricks in the house, and let's give the children the skills and competencies that they need to do this reading. So there are persistent challenges, but it's your core values and your sense of making a difference as a teacher that will get you through. We've got to use our vacations. It's coming up this coming week, and we've got to recalibrate. We recalibrate our body, our mind, our soul, our emotional responses. Take time out and be kind to yourself, because we've got to go back, and the 4th term is a very difficult, demanding time. Know that your values run deep. They go back to your youth, to your family and your community, your history. Your present work and your future directions need to be unified. So we need to be seen as a unified teacher, where our values are the values that we inherited from our families, and that is why we've become teachers. So become confident, become insightful, decisive, and the effective teacher that you set out to be. Okay, I think those are really, really important values to have. So here I'm going to talk about some fun activities to support your reluctant reader. Making your own books. Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever thought that you can make your own books in the shape of the books? I have done some work in Sri Lanka, and in Sri Lanka, you know, they've had this 30-year Tamil Tiger War, and they had no resources up in the north of the island where I was working. So we spent some time. We made books, and look at this. There are elephants in that area. So they made a book out of an elephant. You can't see it, but at the top there's a paper clip. So the book gets turned from the top, and then the story's there. They've made smaller books for each of the children. Would be a wonderful art activity. You know, another thing, ladies and gentlemen, why not bring art into our classroom? Let's do it. Look how beautiful this elephant is. Look at this fish and the dragonfly. Look how beautiful they are. And they've made these books. And look at this lovely car. We can make our own books. Have you ever thought of that? And especially that reluctant reader, he may be the best artist. He might be the one who will get involved in the paint, the drawing, and the conceptualizing of the title and the book. This is a project I did with my first year students who were second language teachers. I think it was in 2007. Yes, I see here it was done in 2007. So I realized that my first year students, the second language students, they had never been to libraries. They didn't know what a library was. So I took them to the library at CPUT, and I showed them the library, I showed them how to take out books. And then I thought, well, no, it's not good enough just to show them how the library works. I have to let them take the books home and to share the books with their families, to share the love of reading. And what better way to share the love of reading than with a teddy bear? So I went to Pick and Pay. I bought this big teddy bear. I had a Pick and Pay bag. I had disposable cameras, and I had a little notepad in there. So at the reception, we kept this bag there, and Alicia, who was a receptionist, she was with me. She understood the project, and then every student put their name down to take the bag home. They didn't want to, it was so funny, the boys didn't want to take a bag with a teddy bear sticking out because they didn't think it would make them look so cool. So I said to them, stuff the teddy bear in the bag so nobody sees you. But they then had to take 2 pictures. They were allowed to take 2 pictures. They had to borrow children from the neighborhood. They had to take out a book from the library. And there's Fluffy. So the students named this teddy bear Fluffy. We had lots of names for him for all the years that I did it. And look at this beautiful picture. I mean, these pictures, look at the children's faces, look at the connection, look at the engagement of all of them. It is beautiful how they're loving it. And what we did as a group is that we decided to make rules for taking care of Fluffy. You know, you weren't allowed to forget Fluffy at home, in the train, the taxi, or the car. You weren't allowed to bath Fluffy or feed Fluffy. We weren't allowed to use Fluffy as a punching bag. We weren't allowed to sleep with him. We weren't allowed to let Fluffy play with children. You weren't allowed to go clubbing with him. You weren't allowed to smoke around him. You weren't allowed to spray him with deodorant or perfume. But you could speak to Fluffy. He wouldn't answer you, but you could speak to him. You had to treat him gently and lovingly, but you weren't allowed to brush him. You were only allowed to brush him with your hand. And then they did this experiment with the children in the book, and they got somebody to take pictures. I had them printed. Nowadays, we can take pictures with our cameras, and then you can give it straight away to the children. And then they then had to respond and reflect on their experience. I never had so much fun with the kids at home. At the end of the day, it did not matter how I felt, but the children had enjoyed themselves. So you see, ladies and gentlemen, we're trying to get the reluctant reader, we're trying to break down that fear that the reluctant reader has, that fear they blocked. We're going to try and break down that block, break down that fear with fun activities, like with different things. And just to work with a teddy bear is such a lovely idea. So at the end of the year, here they all are, all the students are, they put their name into a hat, and I got a colleague of mine to draw out a name, and look at her, she won Fluffy. So, and I see these students quite regularly, and they tell me the most beautiful stories of how it's changed their lives working with Fluffy, and they've got Fluffy at home. They look after Fluffy. Look how she's holding him. It's so beautiful. So, ladies and gentlemen, please go ahead and do a project like this with your children. I'm sure they'll love it. So another wonderful way is to use technology. I just love this picture with this father's face. And he's just loving working with his daughter or granddaughter. So working with technology is a mind shift. You know, children, the reluctant reader doesn't like to hold books, doesn't like to see those black squiggles on the page. I love this picture at the bottom. Look at this child. He's 5 years old and look, he's managing, he's working through the text. He's looking at the pictures. We have to change the mindset of these reluctant learners, teachers. Yes, the thing is with technology, you could have distractions like ads and comment sections, but you just move past that. The video captions can benefit all the students. And there's voiceover, so the children often don't have to read. It can be a voiceover. It can be this weekend I was privileged to go to a session where a lady is writing books, but they've also got sign language people. So you can have sign language people signing it. It could be a voiceover, okay? Listening to audio books, and that stimulates cognition, it stimulates fun. You know, if you're in the car, you're going on a holiday, if you have the privilege of being in a car, you can get audio books and the whole family can listen to those books, and your reluctant reader is in the car with you. Then you can start talking about the plot and the story and where it takes place. And um, an interesting thing with using technology is typically eye movements, we go from left to right and top to down to bottom. But with technology, they go all over the place. There's not a specific mode that our eye movements move. And we are distracted by the pictures and the pop-ups. And so we can't say that the eye movements are left to right and top to bottom. We get that from books. And online reading can encourage robust interaction and less isolated reading. I think some children think that reading is isolating. They don't like that. They want to be part of the group. They want to be the clown. They want to be the one in the middle. But we can encourage online teaching, or reading can encourage robust interaction and discussions and engagement. I think those are important principles. Yes, reading clubs. Oh my goodness. I was at the conference this weekend and about 15 people from Khayelitsha came in. They were all part of a book club. They'd grown up with the book club. They'd gone through COVID with the book club, and they were reminiscing on the value of the book club. And they were all saying this: it establishes a sense of community with other readers. So in our classroom, we can have a library corner. We can have books. In that library corner, we can have information books, narrative books, a whole lot of different genres. We can have all sorts of things, and we encourage our children to share with each other. You see, we reflect on the books that we read. This helps the next person to select that book. When I was busy with my children, I used to do dear reading, drop everything and read. And what we did every day is, as the children came in, they would put their books, their bags down, take out their lunch, put everything away, take out the books, and then they just had a book and they sat and they read their book. And then after 20 minutes, I sat in the front of the classroom and I read my book. And after 20 minutes, they each, not every week, each day, different children had a time. We'd have about 3 or 4 children a day coming up and sitting. We called it the author's chair. And they sat on the author's chair and they shared their book. Now, it was beautiful to see how the children, the reluctant readers, listened to them. And then a few days later, those reluctant readers went and took those books out, because it introduces the reluctant reader to the storyline. And if they think they like the storyline, they'll go and get the book, even though they may only read the pictures. It's fine. Yes, when they were sitting on the author's chair, they would debate the merits of the book, of the author, of the characters, of the plots. They could talk about whatever they liked. But this is what happens when we're in reading clubs, is we talk about all of these aspects. And it forces you to read, but not in a bad way forces you. It's because you want to read. You hear other people's perspectives on the books. And this is so fascinating because we all have different lives. We all come from we all have different communities and values. And I mean, I've just read a book now that was part of my book club, and everyone ranted and raved about it, but I didn't like it. I'm a vegetarian, and the book was about the people killing birds, and I did not like that. That upset me. So everybody said, but they actually overlooked that aspect of the book. They looked at the relationships between the people. So you see, we have different perspectives. And sharing books broadens our own horizons and general knowledge, and it cultivates learning. Children go on a holiday, on a journey with their books. And of course, it's inclusive of all ages and genders. So if we look at this virtuous reading cycle, the more children enjoy reading, the more they read. The more they read, the better they read. The better they read, the more they enjoy reading. And ladies and gentlemen, this helps the children to develop critical thinking skills. It helps their writing. So when it comes to doing their matric, they can do it much better. They can write freely. When they get into tertiary institutions, they become critical thinkers, and that is the most important thing. We want our children to be critical thinkers. We want to remove ourselves from rote learning, where it's what's created the reluctant reader in the first place. We want to engage them in our teaching and our learning and ask them to become participatory members of our communities. So these are some of the reading skills. You know, we activate children's background knowledge. We encourage them to ask questions. We identify the author's purpose. We identify the main idea. We recognize a sequence. All stories go in sequence, A, B, and C. Actually, all words are in sequence. You've got the beginning of the word, the middle of the word, the end of the word. In maths activities, there's sequences. There's a beginning of the maths problem, the middle, and the end. So we have to talk about sequence. Sequence is a very important perceptual skill that we've got to do with our children. The issue of cause and effect is very important. So if I do this, then that is likely to happen. And we've got to talk about those effects. Okay, what happens if I do this? What will be the outcome of that? Making inferences. We've got to identify with children how to make inferences. A while ago, quite a long time ago, I was making an arrangement with somebody and they said, Janet, let's take a rain check. And I had absolutely no idea what he meant by rain check. I just sort of smiled and said, yes, okay. And then I had to go and look it up, and it meant let's leave it for the time being. But you know, ladies and gentlemen, the English language, the Afrikaans language, the African languages, we all use a lot of inferences. We use idiomatic expressions. We talk in flowery language, and sometimes our children miss it and they don't get the right interpretation. So it's very important to actually talk about these inferences so that they get the right interpretation. We make predictions. How's the story going to end? What is this character about? We summarize it. We look for fact and opinion. I think this is very important at the moment in the way our life is going with all the social media. We have to differentiate between fact and opinion, between facts and details. We've got to be able to compare and contrast. So, you know, what are vegetables? What are fruit? We've got to be able to understand them. And then in between, there are those strange things like tomatoes that would go in both of those. We've got to make connections. As I said earlier, making connections is if we connect to the story, to the person, to the context, any connections that we make, we will relate to that story much better. And visualize. That's where technology comes in. The stories can be online and can be visual. We've got to read for clarity, and we've got to adjust our pacing. What do I mean by that? Sometimes a book is very easy. We can run through it very quickly. But sometimes it's really, really hard. You've got to go back and reread it and reread it. And so, you know, we've got to check our pacing. So these are other skills that we do. If we come across a difficult word, we can skip the word. We can read on and guess it. We can look at the picture. We can go back and reread. We can think what's going to make sense. We can sound it out. We can look for chunks. We can get our mouth ready to say that. And I love this one. It says we're going to slide through the whole word. So if we come across a word like ivermectin and we don't know how to pronounce it, we can, you know, break it up, sound it out, look for chunks, and then get our mouth ready, and we can slide through it, and we can say ivermectin. So yes, these are a lot of the skills that I suggest. If you've got reluctant readers, they probably don't know how to read difficult words. So we've got to teach them, and these are all the skills for teaching difficult words. These are higher order reading skills, and they also have to be taught. All right. You've all heard that vocabulary helps children to be better readers. Vocabulary really does assist with reading and comprehension. Um, Children think about and they learn about their world and the greater world, and they have access to new information if they've got a better vocabulary. So this is just such a lovely activity to do. It's called a word ladder. It's a fun way of exposing learners to exploring synonyms. So we can take the sentence, food from the sea is nice. Now, when I was teaching my group there, at the end of the weekend on the Monday, we would have show and tell, and the children would tell, I've been with my nice granny. We had a nice meal. She lives in a nice house. So, children use the word nice. What we want to do is to extend their vocabulary and get them to use different words. So you can say, okay, there's that sentence, food from the sea is nice, but can you think of other synonyms? And they can say, well, nice, delicious, tasty, scrumptious, juicy. And then you put it on a word ladder like this. So nice is the least nice. And then we go up the ladder to the most nice. So probably this would be scrumptious. The next one could be tasty, delicious, juicy, scrumptious. And we put these word ladders and we make them on cardboards, and we hang them from the ceiling in the classroom, where we put them on the wall. So when children go out at break time, they're not just going to say to their friend, I have a nice sandwich. They can say, I've got a scrumptious sandwich. And when whatever theme you're doing, whatever text you're doing, you can take a sentence out there, and you can use this opportunity of using word ladders to think of synonyms. And this is just such a wonderful way of teaching these word ladders. This weekend at this conference, I was reminded of the value of comics. Comics, when I was a teacher, we were told definitely you do not allow your children to read comics. But I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I had comics in my library book, and those were the books. Those were the things that the reluctant readers went to. They went for the comics. Why? Because there's a picture. They can read the expression on the face. They can read the movement. They've just got such a little to read here. And actually, if they can't read the words, they can just read the body language, and they get an idea of it, and that's fine. There's always a starting place. If children can't actually read words and sentences, it's fine to allow them to read the pictures. Like this book, this is the most beautiful book, Deep in the Forest. It's sort of like Cinderella, and it has got lots of pictures. Here's the book. You see no words here. It's everything is in pictures, and the pictures tell the story. So for reluctant readers, it's a very good idea to get wordless books and let them read that. I think what we want them to do is to finish the book, to feel a sense of accomplishment, to feel that they've achieved something, to feel like they've done it. They've done something well. There's a sense of intelligence and power that comes with finishing a book, ladies and gentlemen. And we've got to give our children those opportunities. When I was in Sri Lanka, I taught these children how to it was a reading lesson and a vocabulary lesson, but it was fishing. So we got a stick from the local environment, a bit of string, and at the end of the string, over here is a magnet, and then he has to hold the fishing rod, and on each fish is a paper clip and is a word. So he has to hold the fishing rod and the magnet over the paper clip. He's got to connect it. It's a wonderful activity for fine motor coordination. And then he's got to pick it up as he's doing here, and he's reading. And look at all the children looking over, leaning in to see if he's reading it correctly. And look at the smiles here. Can he connect it? Look at the fun that they're having. It's beautiful, ladies and gentlemen. And you can go crazy with your kind of fish. Look how beautiful these fish are. And then keep them, laminate them, so you keep them from one year to the other. The teaching of inference, as I said earlier, inference is one of the most important higher order skills. So we've got different ways of teaching it. Let me start with this one. Inference is the process of making an educated guess about a text based on the clues provided and our understanding of the world. So we've got text and we've got words in the text, and we're going to make educated guesses based on the clues. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our detective hat on, get our detective magnifying glass. We're going to look for the clues in the text, and we're going to make educated guesses about it. And look at this. So here we've got a picture. Here's a boy dressed in winter clothes, and we can say the boy is kicking leaves. What season is it? So I'm asking them to infer what season is it. I'm asking them to read what's happening in a picture to tell me what season is it. And is it cold or warm in that season? And is he a happy boy? Is he a sad boy? So from a picture, just a small picture like this, we can ask our children a lot of inference questions. We can infer. Again, I spoke to you about idiomatic expressions. If you have a look at the word fish, and we go onto Google and we say idiomatic expressions with fish, we've got there big fish. I'm sure we've all used that word. Something's fishy. Something's not right. I don't like it. Something's fishy, we say. If you've lost a boyfriend or girlfriend, people often say, don't worry, there's plenty of fish in the sea. Or if somebody's a big, important person, we'll say, oh, they're a big fish in a small pond. So you will come up with about 20, 30 idiomatic expressions that we use with fish, with cheese, with any kind of concept, with any of your themes that you use or that you're teaching with now. Go and find out, go and Google it, and actually teach these expressions and allow the children to use the expressions in the classroom. Make an assessment task for them where they can challenge each other to use these expressions. Or we've got similes like a fish out of water. Okay. I had a wonderful honors student once, Yonela, and she did some research for her honors, and she looked at, and her focus was on teaching inference to grade 8 learners and the grade 8 teacher. The grade 8 teacher said, there's no such thing as inference, and you can't teach it. The grade 8 learner said, I've never heard of the word inference. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you look at the Pearls tests, the questions, inference is your second lowest level of questioning. So it's a very, very important skill to be able to teach inference, to understand it and to teach it, and your reluctant reader is going to be able to infer. My children used to tell me jokes. I had a atlas in my class one year, and one of my learning disabled children said, Miss, is this a picture of the world? Is this a picture of the world? So I said, yes. So he said, but how come it says made in Korea? And he was joking with me. And so, ladies and gentlemen, please allow your children to have fun. Please joke with them, because that is all inference, puns and joking. We've got to allow them to tell us jokes and pun with us, and we've got to be able to do that with them, and thereby showing our fun of our learning. So what Yonela did is she found this beautiful method of teaching inference. It's very easy. So the one is a question: what time of the day is it? Then we say, it says, I say, and so it says is, the text says, in the evening. So now I say, I know that for supper I eat fish and chips. And so I know that fish and chips are eaten at supper. So I assume that evening means at night. You see, we're reading the text, we've got out our magnifying glass, and we've put on our detective cap, and we're reading between the lines, and we're making the assumption, and we're making the inference that evening is at night, because we know that we eat fish and chips at night. It might change, of course, nowadays. But when she did this project a few years ago, mostly fish and chips were eaten at night. But ladies and gentlemen, please have fun with the teaching of inference. Another fun way is to use graphic organizers in our classroom. So here's a hierarchy. So, it could be the king of the animals, and then the next ones, and the next ones, and the next ones. It could be a Venn diagram where you're comparing and contrasting. It could be a KWLS. I don't know if you know that. So this is a sheet of paper. At the beginning of your theme, you can say, what do I know about this concept? Maybe your theme is on birds. What do I know about birds? What do I want to know about birds? And then at the end of the theme, you come back and complete this. What have I learned? And what do I still want to know? And ladies and gentlemen, this is a lovely column, because what is I still want to know? We don't learn it all in our short period of time that we go through these themes. And we're left with many questions. So get the children to write those questions down. And then this is a story map, so you want them to write a story. This is the setting, the characters, this is the problem, this is how it manifested, and this is your resolution. So if you have a story map, they just put the characters' names, the context, what will happen, what is problem 1, what is problem 2, what is problem 3, and how does it, excuse me, get resolved. Oh, and this is a KWLS. This is children in Sri Lanka who were working together, and they were writing what they know about the topic, and that you see how they do it collaboratively. Even for your reluctant reader, he or she would be, it would be lovely to be part of this, because you must understand that reluctant readers still have brains, they still have thought processes, and so they want to be participating in the classroom. So if somebody else writes, they can add into it. And this is another graphic organizer, just a different way of looking at producers, primary consumers, secondary consumers. This is just a different way of presenting knowledge. Instead of lots of sentences and children, especially your reluctant readers, seeing too many words on a page, these graphic organizers are wonderful, because there's visual, there are few words, and they can get access into that. Now, another great thing is an anticipation guide. An anticipation guide is always linked to a text. So in this one, this is for a foundation phase class. The text will be on birds. And then you have questions. A bird has 2 wings, and then they've got to circle the right emoji here. A bird cannot fly. Okay, a bird has 3 eyes. So you ask controversial sentences, and then they can answer them. Here, this has been done in a geometry lesson. So before the lesson, they write in true or false, and then you've got your statement. Polygons are baby frogs. is a true or false. And then after the lesson, they also circle that, and they learn, they see how much their learning has grown. And I think that, again, ladies and gentlemen, children want to feel a sense of accomplishment. They want to feel a sense that they've achieved something. It gives them a sense of power. It gives them a sense of that they are bright children, that they have cognitive functioning, and they can be part of a community. This passage is about fungi, and then you've got percentages. So this is done in a class before the reading, agree or disagree, and you've got the statement. So you can have either true or false, or different ways of doing it. And then in the older grades, this was about mermaids. So we had a text. We put the children into groups of 4. You put your name there. So it would be Janet, Hamotso, Heather, James, and then we would say mermaids are real, and then Janet would say, do you agree or disagree? Homotso would agree or disagree, and then as you go along, you can start changing in your mind. If Homotso adds an argument that I find is very interesting and necessary, I'm allowed to change my mind. And that's exactly what learning is. Remember that house with the foundation and going up a layer of bricks and up. You see, we're constantly moving up. We're actually learning and improving our learning. How to make Play-Doh. Ladies and gentlemen, this is fantastic. I did this in Sri Lanka, and you can see that people had to write stories. And then I said to them, okay, this is again in the northern part of Sri Lanka where they have absolutely no resources. And I was doing a project with Child Fund, if we could do this child Play-Doh. We had to buy flour, oil, salt, water, spoons, and cake coloring, and we had to buy some bowls and things. But we mixed all of it. They loved it. And look at the picture that he's made here. This and one of them made a picture like this. This is the bicycle in Sri Lanka. They move around on bicycles, but you can see how he's added the wood here. This is how he carries his wood. And to show you how in reality what it's like, you see, this is a typical person who would be carrying the wood from one place to other. And he's made his picture out of that experience. And then I was working with lots of subject advisors, and they had made their pictures. Aren't they beautiful? Ladies and gentlemen, you can keep these pictures, just the sense of that tactileness. It's soft, it's pliable, it's fabulous. I taught that, I think it was in 2013. The gentleman that I worked with at Child Fund, he bought me all these ingredients, and then he left Child Fund and went to work in the NGO of veterinaries, and he brought in making Play-Doh to all the vets and in 2017, when I went back to Sri Lanka and I went round the whole island, every teacher that I bumped into was using Play-Doh. For your reluctant reader teachers, this is a fabulous way of working, letting them enjoy their work. Now the my turn, your turn, I'm hurrying up because I can see my time is coming to an end. The my turn, your turn, you see you are role modeling these higher order thinking skills by saying, my turn, I wonder what this lesson is really about. Now your turn. You see, you ask these kinds of questions about your text. A feature matrix is about having your text and having columns, and then cutting out the appropriate picture and putting them under the appropriate heading there. Or for older learners, you can do more intense, more dense work of different types of fishing, ask more sentences. But and if you're doing this with your class, the reluctant readers, they can work together with another child. Another thing is to do readers theater. They love this. They love dressing up like an elephant. These were the subject advisors. He was an elephant. Here she's a lion. Look at the fun that they've got on their face. They standing here to take pictures. They were showing off. These are trees. The important thing about readers theatre, everybody, is that you must talk. So the reluctant reader might be the shy reader initially, but then they will develop confidence as they do this more and more often. A think aloud is similar to a my turn, also role modeling these higher order thinking skills, saying, it's my turn. I wonder, what kind of ecosystem do you think this food web describes? Okay, and now it's your turn. Every pupil response. This is lovely, having these hands made yes and no on the other side. And then the teacher asks questions. The children just put up the yes or the no so she can see what everybody is thinking, and she can judge, should she reteach? Do the children understand it or what? All right, gosh, Hamotso, that's it. I'm finished on time. Over to you, Hamotso.
Prof. Condi, that was fantastic. And I think definitely the educators that have been sitting in today found this absolutely insightful. Sure, I'm in awe. I'm in awe. Thank you so much. That was a very, very, very lovely, insightful workshop today. And as I said, that I know and I do trust and believe that educators today will take away all the knowledge that you've shared with us today. Thank you so much. We do have a few questions.
Yes, sure.
Let's just shoot straight into those. But before we get into the questions, educators, I would just like to just make you aware then of connect with us. Those are our contact details, our main line. You can get in touch with us, customer services. Alternatively, I think with the workshop, you did receive an email address that you can forward all your forwarding queries to, and then that's our website. You're welcome to visit that for more resources and just get more information on our product. And then as well, you can connect with us on social media, Twitter/X, that's our handle. And then as well on Facebook, you can connect with us there. And lastly, as I mentioned earlier, YouTube, that's our YouTube channel, Macmillan Education South Africa. Yeah, you're welcome to just also view again our Macmillan Online Reading Corner stories. Yeah, we're getting very positive feedback. Thank you to all the educators that are just sharing their feedback. Thank you for the lovely workshop. Thank you again. This was very informative. Dear Prof. Condi, thank you. An amazing workshop. Now, the first question, Prof, that we received, let me just quickly move that up. What can be done to assist a learner that doesn't show progress after doing phonics, etc., due to language barrier?
Well, I think we've got to find out what is the child's love. As I said earlier on, Sia Khaleesi was posed as a learning disabled child when he went to Gray's High School, but that remedial teacher identified that he loved rugby. So she went to the library. She got basic reading books on rugby, books with big pictures, and she started there. You know, find out what it is that they love and go back to the basics and connect their love. Let them connect with the reading that they're doing. I hope that helps.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Prof. Next question we have. Hi, the fluffy activity where they have to take care of the dog is an excellent way of having the learners engaged and having a competition. How did you decide who the winner was? Which criteria?
It was a teddy bear, and you can use any fluffy toy, that's fine. We used a teddy bear. How did we decide? Everybody who was in the class at the end of the year put their name on a piece of paper and put it in a hat. and then my colleague scrunched up all the names and pulled out one name out of the hat. So that's how it was done. The students were overawed with excitement about winning it, and they loved the process and they trusted the process. Yeah, I hope that helps.
Great stuff. No, thank you. Next question. Hi, thank you so much for this workshop, but I'm a first-time grade 1 teacher who is struggling to teach learners to read. Is it possible to have more workshops on how to teach learners to read, preferably longer with hands-on examples? Perhaps I can tackle that one. I think if you stay tuned to Macmillan Campus, we will definitely be posting more information on further workshops that will definitely be in line with you. All right.
Yes, because
Yeah.
may I say that
Yes.
Macmillan have asked me to do many workshops for them on reading with struggling readers with barriers to reading. So I do many projects with Macmillan. So please attend those workshops. They're lovely. I love working with Macmillan and working on those PowerPoints.
Great stuff. All right, and then I think I've got one more question and then we're going to wrap it up. Have you ever dealt with more than 60 learners where 60% in grade 7 cannot read? How do you go about that?
No. The short answer is no. I haven't ever experienced it, but what I have experienced is teaching 60 subject advisors in Sri Lanka where I don't speak the language. So I had a Tamil translator and a Sinhalese translator, but with facial language, facial features, and acting out, we got there. How do we work with 70 children in a class? I think the important thing is to have fun, to break the groups into the 70 learners into groups, put lots of books out there, make them active, get them busy, ask them to ask each other questions, get them to take responsibility. We must stand back and become the facilitator, and they must do the work. You know, we've passed grade 7. Why are we standing in front of the classroom and teaching them and talking to them? They've got to be doing the work. And if they get involved and they start playing a role and taking responsibility for their learning, yes, you can do that. But it takes a mind shift. I think it's the important thing is there's got to be a huge mind shift. What I suggest you do is just start slowly. You know, put your little toe out, do something small one day, next day, you know, see how it went, reflect on it. Did it go well? Should I do this differently? What should I do here? And slowly each day you put your big toe out a little bit more, and start until you start doing things differently. That's what I did when I was teaching my children at Vista Nova. Admittedly, there were only 10, but there were 10 learning disabled children. When you look at the weighting system, it was like having 42 children in the class. But I decided to do different kind of teaching. So I started off slowly. You know, we risk doing something different. So let's risk. Do it slowly, get feedback, change, be flexible, try again, don't give up. It is difficult, but I know you've got it. You've gone through your training. You're all committed teachers. You've got the love of teaching. You've got the love of children, and you're going to be excellent teachers. Thanks, Hamotso.
Great. Thank you much, Prof. Now, I think we can wrap it up there with the questions. I just wanted to add one last note. We will be sharing this recording. You'll get an email with just the link then to watch this recording of the workshop if you missed any more points. And if you have any further questions, please do forward those then to the email that you received then with this workshop. We'll be happy to field more questions, but unfortunately we have reached the end of this wonderful workshop. Thank you again to Prof. Condi, and thank you so much, educators, for attending. We hope that you go out there and you absolutely take on this information and you implement it. And as I mentioned earlier in the workshop, that you will be getting a certificate of attendance, but if you have any issues, please also do drop us an email then with a query, then our admin team will assist. For myself and wonderful Prof. Condi, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Khamotso. Bye-bye. Khamotso, can we talk?